Hello and welcome to Identerati Office Hours. I'm your host, Mike Schwartz, founder of Glue, and today is episode 49, the latest news on EU wallet initiatives. Our guest today is Annette Steenbergen, independent advisor to the travel and tourism industry, and our co-host today is Timo Karainen. I'm sorry, Timo. I think I need you to jump in here. Can you
Yeah,
help
it's
us?
okay, Mike. Teemu Kääriäinen, so senior
Thank
advisor
you.
from the Finnish Ministry of Finance.
Right. Thank you so much. Um, and so maybe before we start, and Annette, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And maybe before we dive into the topic, you guys could give a quick intro. Annette, let's start with you since you're the guest.
Thanks. Well, I started out working in international border management for the Dutch government and worked and lived in other countries like Suriname, South Africa, and ended up also living and working in Aruba for the Aruba government, for the Prime Minister, and was there able to co-lead and co-initiate or lead and co-initiate a very interesting innovative project that was a world's first and in the end got me where I am now, which was a local identity management system at the airport, uniting all three stakeholders: the airport, the airline, and the government, in a uniform process using a biometric token. And that was a world's first in 2013. So identity and border are very closely linked, and from then on was digital identity. Got involved on behalf of Aruba in a lot of international working groups like IATA, One ID, and that evolved in now very happily joined the EU Digital Wallet Consortium, where Timo and I are colleagues. We co-lead the work package 5 on communication and dissemination, and I joined because they run the three large-scale pilots, but the one on the travel use case, which is close to my heart. And I joined as an independent advisor on digital identity and travel.
And Timo, we've known each other for a long time, but for the sake of the audience, maybe tell a little bit about how you got here.
Yeah, so I have a background in cybersecurity and identity and access management, and we actually go way back with Mike. I think the first Glue deployments that we did together was something like 2016, so almost 10 years now. So I've been working with digital identities and identity and access management for the past over 15 years. Currently, I'm working as a senior advisor in the Finnish Ministry of Finance. I'm kind of wearing two hats in this meeting. I'm the representative of the EWC piloting consortium and also a representative of Finland as a member state. So in the Ministry of Finance, we are coordinating the national implementation of the revised eIDAS regulation, and I'm chairing the functional working group there. The Ministry of Finance is also co-leading the EWC consortium along with our colleagues from Sweden, and we're piloting the European Digital Identity Wallets, or the EU DI wallets, with use cases related to payments, travel, and organizational digital identities. So very much looking forward to the discussion today.
So Annette, if I could start with a question for you. As an American, there's a lot of EU wallet initiatives, and maybe you could just give us some background on the EWC that we're talking about today. Where did it come from, and what are the goals?
So even before the revised eIDAS regulation was adopted by the European Parliament and Council, it was in the works and in preparation, and the European Commission decided that they wanted to hit the ground running, and parallel to this project of the regulation in Parliament, they decided to call or write out a call for proposals and co-finance large-scale pilots. This resulted in 4 consortia. The consortia are public-private, so there's, as Teemu said, member states taking the lead, and many organizations, businesses joining, and also universities, for instance. So there's 4 of them right now, and Teemu and I are in the EU Digital Wallet Consortium, EWC for short. And we pilot the travel use case, but also payment and organizational digital identity. And there are others piloting academic credentials, health credentials, payment, etc.
And Teemu, why was the Finnish finance ministry interested in this and participating so actively in this effort?
Yeah, so like Annette said, basically the preparations for the EU DI wallets have been progressing on multiple parallel tracks. So there's the regulation or the legislation preparations. Alongside, there has been what is called a toolbox process that has been defining the architecture reference framework for the EU DI wallets. And the pilots are kind of a third track alongside the toolbox process and the legislative preparations. And we have seen it as a very important forum to influence how the EUDI wallets kind of shape up in very concrete terms, because we're trying them out in concrete real life use cases like travel and payments. They are very much cross-border in nature. And it's obviously a very good forum to work together with other member states and also private sector entities from other countries, and ensuring the kind of cross-border interoperability and also the interoperability between the public and private sectors, because this is very much an endeavor that could benefit both the public and private sectors if it's widely adopted.
So, Annette, what could we do with a digital travel credential that we maybe couldn't do with a physical travel credential, even if that, I think most passports today have a chip in them. So what is it, why is there so much interest sort of in moving to this new model and we're really talking about a wallet in a mobile phone, right? Or
Yes.
a wallet on your computer. So what will we be able to do with that?
So to make a distinction here, a digital travel credential is a general term. Have a credential for travel. We hope to have to use our wallet and share digital travel credentials. But there is also in the EU, which is based on the EU regulation, but we also have a global standard. Now, a passport is based on a global standard, which is guarded by ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. They have the mandate to set passport standards. So all our passports are in the standard based on the standard, so we can read and verify the authenticity anywhere in the world. Now, for the digital version of that, there was developed a ICAO digital travel credential. The first type 1. I won't bore you with type 2 and 3 yet, but let's make it. Let's focus on type 1. This is very important. It's a credential, or it's not. There's discussion whether it's a credential, but it's a digital file that you use your mobile phone to derive with NFC and an e-passport to derive. The biometrics is verified against the one in the passport, binding you to the document as the holder, and then there is a file created which is based on an international standard. So that's the ICAO DTC Type 1. Now that is a global standard, and it's designed, or it's developed, to be used by border control authorities, and border control authorities are allowed to have all your data, right? But right now we use passports in many other use cases. So we will give it to check into your flight, or to board a ferry, or even use cases to go to a hotel, you also give it. But then you give too much information often. So
Right, and then
there
the
is
photocopy
there
is sitting in the filing cabinet drawer for who knows
exactly
how
that
long.
nightmare. Oh my God! Just think about
Yes.
all the photocopies of your passport all over the world, where probably still being kept. So if we talk about the wallet, we hope to have, this is still hope, to have the DTC in the wallet. But of course, the EU Digital Wallet is, the anchor of it is your PID, your personal identity data, which is issued by the government. So we don't yet know how that will work with the ICAO digital travel credential. Plus, we have the issue that you cannot share it if you check, for instance, or want to be compliant to the GDPR. You cannot share your ICAO digital travel credential, that format, with an airline or with a hotel, because you're giving away too much information to a private party. So there is an issue that we need some kind of new credential form, whereby you can use selective disclosure, but still know it's derived from that source. This is important because very often airlines, hotels, they have to comply, and it's written in the regulation that, for instance, if you board a flight, you have to be in possession of the correct travel document for your destination. That's the carrier's responsibility. If you check into a hotel, the local police regulation often states check the passport or take down the passport name, etc. So to comply with these regulations, for in a digital version, we are looking for a solution.
Okay.
But we will find one.
So maybe I'll ask the same question to Timo, because I think that was great background. So what I heard was that the work being done is to define this new type of credential, which sort of ignores where that credential is going to be stored, or maybe even how it's going to be presented. So it sounds like the work is more on what does that credential look like, and what are some of the use cases about how that would help us do new types of things, like what can we do with that we can't do with our existing current infrastructure? Timo, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that at the core of the EU Digital Wallet is really the privacy enhancing capabilities. That was a topic that was very much brought up by the European Parliament in the final phases of the EIDAS regulation preparation. So they very firmly enforced many privacy enhancing capabilities like pseudonymous identification and zero knowledge proofs and selective disclosure, data minimization to the regulation, and this is kind of the type of development that we want to promote. Basically, as Annette said, the DTC, the ICAO DTC in its current form does not kind of promote selective disclosure in its best way, and as such, we're kind of looking for alternatives. And the use cases that we are solving with these types of credentials is usually a use case of proximity, of basically offering capability to use the wallet for identification in proximity use cases. And we're in our national implementation, obviously looking after this kind of a capability. And one interesting development that has been ongoing is related to the standardization of ISO IEC 23220-4 that defines this photo ID data model that could offer the possibility of actually having a facial image of you as part of a credential in your wallet, but it wouldn't be kind of the passport. So there's a clear distinction that passport is actually kind of a higher level of security that you need when you're doing like border crossing, but for the kind of use cases where lower security is required and you want to have selective disclosure, you could use this photo ID and so that's kind of what we are looking after. And obviously, as policymakers, we are very closely monitoring the kind of legislation and even kind of global level interoperability when it comes to this kind of use cases. So we're very much interested in the development of standardization on this front, and also taking it into account in some domain-specific legislation, like there is an ongoing discussion in the EU level about legislation for the digital travel credentials. So obviously the EU Digital Wallet is kind of a topic that is very important for that as well.
So let's say I'm a normal traveler, and I'm not an Identerati who knows about selective disclosure and zero knowledge proofs and wallets. What does this mean for me as sort of a normal person, this transformation? And did you get any insights from the initial work that you're doing? I'm also curious about the online use case. Like, I book a flight. It seems a little inefficient because lately when I show up for a flight, they're using facial recognition. And it seems like maybe using a digital wallet, could I maybe upload or present my passport or my identification online before I actually even arrive at the airport? So I'm just curious, what does this look like for the normal person? And are there any hooks into sort of the in-person part of this experience that this new digital wallet effort could help?
Absolutely. I'll take that question. The world of travel and tourism has been working on a seamless seamless passenger facilitation for a long time. And biometrics is out there, and you've seen it, like you said yourselves, it's probably you're referring to US CBP in the US, or TSA, where it's the government uses it to ease and to facilitate the process and to not cut down on any security. Now, at an airport, you want to have a walking pace experience, ideally. No lines, no endless checks. Now, if we can digitize a lot of this process before you arrive at the airport to make you arrive ready to fly, basically, you do that at home. But at the same time, the airline needs to comply with a lot of rules and regulations. So if you fly internationally, they need to know that you're in possession of the correct travel document, and they need to send API. Now, this is not the API probably you usually refer to, but this is automated passenger information. So the airline needs to send to the country of destination the list of passengers in advance, so they can prepare and run their security checks. So this needs to be the same name as the passport. Often you're now required to put that in, and you'll type it in by hand, quickly making a typo.
I have
then
a
later,
real problem with this because sometimes it auto-completes my name as Mike, because I go by Mike and Michael,
exactly.
And I show up at the airport, and it's a big deal.
Exactly, this is a big deal because it has to do with security. A bit of background, why we have automated advanced passenger information. Apologies for that one. Advanced passenger information. That's a UN Security Council resolution. It's countering trans-border organized crime, especially in terrorism. So there is a serious reason for this, and many countries have adopted this in their national law. So this needs to be the right name from the moment on. Now, if you book a flight and you can, by a few clicks, add from your wallet your name and other credentials that are needed to book a flight, and then when you check in for your flight, you again match that with your wallet. It's with a high level of assurance. The airline, as relying party, will know that they have the correct data.
It
So
would have
that is
saved me
a
from two extremely stressful situations too. And I
exactly,
went
and it
through
and
all of my forms on Google in Chrome and removed everywhere it said Mike and put in Michael after that, just to make sure that that never happens again. So if I was deriving this information from my wallet, you're saying the person's less likely to make this mistake and have this traumatic experience at the airport where they say, "I'm sorry, we can't let you board."
exactly, because it's automated, digital, and it has a high level of assurance. So the relying party, being the airline, will, if it comes from the wallet, they will know that they can trust this data, because at the core again of the EU Digital Wallet is this PIT. This is the anchor, and the PIT, whether it's a government issued wallet or later on we probably also will have privately issued wallets if they comply with the rules and regulations. The PIT is still issued by the government.
Right. And I guess, so this seems, as soon as we start talking about online transactions, it seems to relate very well to payments, and I can start to see how we'd want to, or why the work done in identity space would translate into payments. Actually, it almost seems backwards in a way, because a lot of times, like if you ask the average person about a digital wallet, they might start with payments and then say, oh yeah, you can maybe send identity stuff too. Um, but Timo, what are your thoughts on the overlap with payments? And do you think payments might actually come before identity presentation because there's less trust issues with it? Or how do you see this overlapping with the payment sector?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Basically, in terms of the adoption of the EU DI wallets, the payments is seen as a very important enabler. The EWC consortium specifically focuses on defining the ways how kind of existing payment infrastructure could benefit from the capabilities offered by the EU DI wallet. So it's not like we're building something completely new, but we're kind of looking at the alignment of the existing capabilities with this new capability that we're bringing into picture. And there's obviously a lot of existing legislation concerning payment capabilities. So especially the PSD2, the Payment Service Directive, that is in force in the EU, and its strong customer authentication capabilities are kind of the first point to cover on this front, to basically study what it means to use an EU DI wallet as a means for strong customer authentication. Obviously, kind of moving forward, the EU DI wallet may also have the role of a holder for payment credentials, such as tokenized payment cards, and we're obviously seeing a lot of these type of payment wallets already out there in the market. There's obviously challenges ahead. Liability being one key question when you're using the EUDI wallet as a means for strong customer authentication. Additionally, ensuring appropriate user experience for end users and solving the issues related to interoperability. Just due to the fact that we're dealing with a somewhat new set of standards for data exchange, namely the OpenID for VC. And basically, having had the opportunity to work with many of the payment experts, there's kind of a gap between digital identity and payments, and what we have been able to do in the EWC is to bring these two worlds kind of closer together to kind of find some working solutions. And in the EWC, we've been working on a set of guidelines how to pilot the use of EUDA wallets in payment scenarios, and these are actually actively being discussed in the EWC Payment Interest Group. That is an open forum for all kinds of stakeholders to get a better understanding of how payments and EUDA wallets could interact. So,
Annette, so it's my understanding that EWC it's not just studying, but it's actually working on stuff, and that there's pilots going on. What's been learned so far, and was there anything surprising in those learnings?
I don't know if we can. We're in the middle of the pilots ending phase 1, and getting ready for phase 2, and we have a phase 3 to end it off with. So the learnings are on. Nothing specific I can mention, or maybe later Timo can jump in, but it is a learning journey. Everybody working together, relying party, issuing parties. We have to pilot the wallet. We have to get issuing parties ready. We have to work on the use case, how it will actually work out, and bump into all kinds of practical issues. Well, the issue of the DTC, for instance, that is now one of the topics that everybody's focusing on. Timo,
What's
do you
a
have
DTC?
anything?
Digital
Sorry,
travel
the
credential?
ICAO DTC. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And and the selective disclosure. Yes. Timo, are you aware of any learnings we could share already?
Yeah, so like said, we're hosting the payment interest group, and maybe we could promote it also on our LinkedIn page, because it's there we have all the experts, and basically there's issues related to the nature of kind of decentralized digital identity, because it's basically fully in the individual's control. So there's not the kind of traditional provider that you have, and basically that's more problematic from fraud management point of view, even though the wallet is kind of functioning in the high level of assurance, but it's still kind of a third party solution from the bank's perspective. So they have to be very clear about the liability requirements. If somebody kind of steals your digital identity wallet and uses it for fraudulent activities, basically who's responsible in that case? So this is something that the payment people basically they remember to mention this every time when you're discussing about payments and EU Digital Wallet. So who's liable at the end of the day? I think when it comes to payment capabilities, like I said previously, the usability is kind of a very key topic. So if we don't consider the usability of EU Digital Wallet from the get-go, basically there's a risk of it becoming just a public sector exercise that is used in very few public sector use cases, and we don't get all the benefits of its wide scale adoption. And basically, like if you look at the existing wallet solutions, Google Wallet, Apple Wallet, basically they can fully optimize the user experience for the end users because it's their own platform where they are running it. So the EU Digital Wallet kind of needs to adapt this to this kind of a setup, and obviously there's some possibilities that can be tackled through regulation to provide kind of a easier access, for instance, to the NFC capabilities that has been happening in the iOS recently, but kind of very much something to keep in mind. And the third thing that I would like to raise, basically in Finland, for instance, we have a very functioning existing eID landscape that is a combination of public and private institutions. So we see the adoption from the private sector side crucial for the kind of viability of EU Digital wallets. And basically, the regulation makes kind of a business models for the wallet providers quite challenging at the moment. So the use of the wallets should be basically free of charge for individuals. So it's difficult to find kind of a viable business model how to become a wallet provider. So in order for us to have wallets available, not just the ones that are provided by the governments, but also wallets from private sector to boost innovation, boost new use cases. We need to take the private sector's viewpoint into consideration.
Annette, I'm wondering about some of the trust models. I always remind people that identity is about both tools and rules. And part of those rules are the trust models, because in order for digital credentials to be useful, there has to be reciprocity between potentially nations to accept these credentials, or even the private sector to say, as Timo was mentioning, am I going to trust this? And what happens if something goes wrong and it's fraudulent? Can you talk about, Annette, some of the challenges around sort of building a governance and trust framework for this type of ecosystem?
So this is an important question, and this puts a dot on the horizon, because we are working right now on the eIDAS 2.0, which is the EU regulation. So we are working cross borders within the European Union. The regulation covers, it's a law. EU regulation is the same as a law. So every nation has to adopt it into their own law. And it means that Timo is in Finland and he can open a bank account in the Netherlands, where I am. Or I can go on holiday to Greece and I will have my prescription, my e-prescription, and I can go to a pharmacy and I can show it's a real prescription and I can get my drugs. So we have that within Europe. We have the regulation, which is basically our trust model. We will have to have the quality trust service providers will have to be on a list. The relying parties will have to be on a list. It will have to be monitored, of course, and they will have to be compliant. So we will have to, that I don't know how this will be done. I think that's, I see Timo smiling. That's a bit of a challenge, but this is very important, especially for the small and medium enterprises, who should hopefully all use it. So I'll go to Finland and buy myself a glass of wine, and I still have to prove I'm over 18. I hope that works in the bar there as well. You know, so it's not just the Googles and the Amazons that have to comply. It's also small and medium enterprises. But then we look further on the horizon. What if, hopefully, this wallet, which, by the way, every European member state, based on this regulation, will have to provide a wallet to its citizens in 2026. So that's around the corner. So if we then have trust, hopefully, in this wallet, we start using this wallet, and especially if you look at travel, you cross borders, you also cross EU borders, and you go outside of the EU. When will I be able to use it outside of the EU? Will other countries at some point trust the EU Digital Wallet? This is a question, because right now you can only, it's set up in such a way that relying parties have to be inside the EU or registered inside the EU. So a Brazilian company cannot just, right now with the way it's set up now, become a relying party to an EUDI wallet. But what happens in the future when the trust is there that this is a very trustworthy, high level of assurance wallet? I can imagine other countries saying, I want to receive a digital travel credential from that wallet because I trust the EU governments to do a good job and to connect to us. But this is a further dot on the horizon than first getting the EU wallet within the European Union across our borders or between the member states in place. And then let's see, the EU has a lot of arrangements in place with other countries on adequacy, whether the privacy rules are adequate enough for any trade to be done. So hopefully this results in an exchange of the digital identity as well. But that's a far dot on the horizon.
So Timo, you know, when I look at this ecosystem, it seems like, for example, Annette said the EU, the UD wallet or the EU wallet, but as I understand it, there's actually going to be each nation creating its own wallet. And I see some, maybe it's just my engineering outlook, but I see some complexity in this, in that for a verifier to trust the credential coming from the wallet, they have to trust not only that the issuer issued that wallet, but they have to trust that that credential has been sufficiently protected in the wallet, so that a hacker couldn't, or an attacker couldn't steal it and then present it themselves. Um, and I think that this trust model, we have a lot of history and precedent for older trust models, but we don't have any historical precedent for, I believe, this three-party trust model where we have issuer, holder, and verifier. Do you have any follow-up thoughts on some of the challenges around, some maybe both technical and legal challenges around making this or scaling this trust model for this new wallet ecosystem?
Yeah, excellent question, Mike. Basically, it's not only one wallet per member state, but there may be several wallets from an individual member state. So from Finnish perspective, we're basically very much open to having kind of a public sector wallet, but any number of private sector wallets. And basically what the regulation and the implementing acts enforce is a very strict certification scheme for the wallets. So that's kind of a further issue for many private sector entities, that they have to undergo this quite strict kind of a compliance evaluation, and in order to get the status of an EUDI wallet. But basically from the trust models perspective, the regulation and the implementing acts kind of define the kind of trust framework or the trust registries only for the key roles defined in the regulation and the implementing acts. Like there's going to be a trusted list for the wallet providers. There will be trust registries for the relying parties. There will be trusted lists for the PID providers. But then we get to the kind of juicy part, which is the kind of domain-specific trust models, which is very difficult to scale. Basically, examples of these, what we have now in place is, for instance, related to the mobile driving license. So there's already a functioning standard, the ISO IEC 18013-5, with the associated trust framework. But basically, looking globally, there's basically at most hundreds of institutions who issue mobile driving licenses. It's usually countries or states or these kind of actors. But when we are looking at the EUDI wallets, we're looking at use cases where the trust model may require thousands or tens of thousands of institutions to be incorporated into the trust model. Let's say education. If you look at all the different levels of education and educational credentials, there's basically in Europe alone tens of thousands of organizations who could potentially be issuing educational credentials. So what kind of a trust model do you build for that kind of a use case that should be kind of hierarchical, should be up to date, and it's a very, very complex issue indeed, and definitely something where we're looking after the kind of standardization bodies. For instance, OpenID Foundation with their OpenID Federation specification serving as a good basis for scalable trust models compared to the kind of traditional ones.
So, and getting back to Annette, what we were talking about my passport being photocopied and sitting in a filing cabinet in Berlin for God knows how long. So in order for something like, in order to solve that problem though, these solutions have to go way down, not just to like the customs, the border customs agents who have access to a lot of resources and training, but down a level further. And what has to happen in order for, let's say, the elderly woman at the Airbnb, who photocopied my passport, to be able to not have to ask me for that, but to make sure that I'm still the right guest who's checking in?
I hope there will be providers who will, of course, not for free, but will have a paid subscription where you could possibly, I don't know if this is possible, but this will be the only solution, because that elderly lady who has the Airbnb, she will not become a relying party herself. She may become a relying party through some other service. That's how I foresee this to happen. Big hotel chains, of course, will become relying parties, I'm sure. But the reason why they will want to join this is because, and that's something, and I look at with quickly at some of the questions, asking, is this centralized? Is this decentralized? What does it do to privacy? So this is decentralized, and basically what this does, and Timo already mentioned this at the last minute, the regulation had very extra strong focus on privacy. Basically, this operationalizes our GDPR. So the GDPR says you only get the data you need to get to deliver a service. And so the person only shares the data they need to share to get the service, and nothing more, which is data minimization. And this wallet will operationalize this. So, and if you don't comply, in the EU there is a fine. So it is there is a strong reason, I think, to use that, but it shouldn't be too expensive, of course, and too cumbersome.
Yeah, Timo, we talked about usability, and pushing this usability down to solve some of these problems is a big challenge. Ultimately, we want to also make sure that that guest really is the right person checking in, because if they commit a crime, we need to know who that person is. And so where is there, I'm sort of trying to lead you into, is there some hook for biometrics where, because we still need to understand that this is the person, but we also don't want to overshare personal information and personal data. So is part of the solution also to somehow anticipate how we make that bridge between identifying people and asserting their identity?
Yeah, I think it boils down to the verifiers, to the service providers. So quite often this discussion we're having is related to the different types of credentials that we're issuing, whether it's a DTC or whatnot, or whether about the wallets. But quite often we forget the verifier part, and I think that's exactly the area where we should put focus, so that the services that the verifiers are providing can provide the kind of user experience that makes it easy to handle this kind of situation. So, for instance, the Airbnb mobile app could just as well function as a verifier and ask for the selectively disclosed attributes from the end user, and also give the possibility to kind of log and store that information in a verifiable format. And basically it's possible to go back to those at a later point of time and ensure that they haven't been tampered with, because it's basically a verifiable presentation that has been shown at that point. And it can just as well contain the facial image of the individual that you get from a DTC or a photo ID that you have in the wallet, but basically any other attributes that may be required by local regulation or in any jurisdiction.
If
That's
I
a
may
very
add,
interesting point. Yeah, please, Annette.
Biometrics is under the GDPR, under the highest category of sensitive data, sensitive personal data. So it requires a high level of restrictive use and no storing. So again, border authorities have a very good reason to use it because it's national security. But an Airbnb host should never store biometrics. So we need to work on this in such a way that you still use the biometrics, because in travel in general, you want to keep moving, right? Travel is not about standing still, it's about moving. So you want to keep moving, and biometrics is the easiest, the quickest, the touchless version to pass a touch point, for instance. But this should be done without storing the biometrics. So, and again, the DTC, the ICAO DTC will store your biometrics. If your biometrics in some way, but in a proximity kind of use case, could be made useful, that would be great, because then I know they're not storing my biometrics, but I can still leverage it.
So we're a little over time, but this is such a vast topic. I'm actually really fascinated by what Timo just said, because it made me think, actually, you're right, that I am carrying an Airbnb app. And so if I could biometrically identify myself to the app, not share it, but just assert my identity in the app, and then Airbnb could share it. Yeah, I didn't really consider that, Timo, but it's a great point. But I think it just shows, like, there's so many little details here, and I feel like we're undergoing this vast digital transformation, and we're just really at the start of that. I want to go quickly to last thoughts. Timo, maybe any quick last thoughts before we break?
So there's a lot of going on multiple fronts. So I definitely recommend following the progress. So obviously the European Commission is very vocal with their communication campaign. Many member states have already national eIDAS implementation projects ongoing. Probably the German one with their innovation project being the most visible one. Obviously, please follow also the for LSP consortia that we're having, and also the work that is happening across the different standardization organizations, Open Wallet Foundation, Open ID Foundation, and CEN and ETSI here in Europe. So a lot of interesting developments ongoing on multiple tracks. Thanks.
So, Timo, some of the audience might know that I have a wiki page. Being a geek, I love GitHub wikis. So we have a GitHub wiki page for each episode. So maybe I'll ping you after and get some links and add it to the wiki page. And that's thank you so much for being a guest. And any last thoughts before we break?
Thank you for having me. I very much enjoyed it. I also wanted to say EU Digital Wallet Consortium.org or EU Digital Wallet Consortium on LinkedIn, but we'll share those links with you. And I know it's a steep hill we have to climb to get there, but I'm sure we will travel the world using our digital travel credential in the near future.
Someday, yes. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you, audience, for joining us. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Universal online identification sounds familiar, is the topic. Please, everyone, hit follow on the LinkedIn page for Identerati office hours. We're trying to get to 1,000 followers. We get special privileges on LinkedIn if we can get there, 1K. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next Tuesday.